Hello, everybody. My name is Angela Hayes, and I'm the Associate Director of Alumni and Online Career Engagement. Today, we'll be talking about virtual networking. This webinar and the ones that follow each week are a bit different than my typical webinars in that I'll spend just about 15 to 20 minutes on the material, and then I'll stop the recording because I'm recording this first part for those who want to see this later. So I'll stop the recording and then I'll take questions and answers so that those who want to ask questions can do that confidentially about their job search. I'll also be sending this PowerPoint to those who attended later today, because there's a lot of links that you can start working on now. And to access the links, you'll just need to put the PowerPoint in slideshow mode, and then you can just click on the hyperlinks and it'll take you straight to wherever it is that I've directed you. So, and I also want to mention for those who are watching the YouTube video, those same links will be in the comments below the YouTube video. So let's get started. Now is the ideal time to make connections with past, present, future clients, coworkers, potential employers, companies of interest. It's the perfect time. One of the reasons is that a lot of people are thinking that it isn't the perfect time, so you'll have less competition as you're out there networking. But also, companies are still hiring. And for those that aren't during this particular time, once the hiring and buying process starts up again, we're likely to see a very real separation between those who have continued to network and those who have not, in terms of who's getting the jobs. So let's talk about how to network most effectively during this time. These are the three main areas that we're going to cover. Updating your online profiles, whether that's LinkedIn, Twitter, your ePortfolio, and so on. Researching and deciding on which companies are the most interest to you and the particular people that you'd like to network with the most. And then we'll finish by talking about the most effective ways to network virtually. You'll want to start by making sure that your social profiles are squeaky clean. That doesn't just mean getting rid of party pics. It also means removing articles that are politically divisive or could be considered offensive, really long rants on basically any topic. Just look at your social media content from the perspective of a future employer. Now, in the past, sometimes alum will say, well, that's who I am. You know, if employers don't like that, then they can just go on to the next candidate. And that's true to a point, but in our current job circumstances, I would say definitely err on the side of safety in terms of what you've got on social media. Yeah, and we'll talk about that more in a bit. So one of the things you can do is Google yourself to see what others are seeing and what that might tell them about you. You'll always want to use incognito mode for Google and private mode for the others, Firefox, Safari, Internet Explorer. That way your personal browsing history won't affect the results. The results that you see will be what everyone else would see, rather than the results targeting you specifically. About 92% of companies use social media for hiring, and 3 out of 4 hiring managers will check your social media profiles. And they'll use that as part of their hiring decision. So is what you're seeing in your story, is that the story you want to tell? If not, start working on what you do want to tell, the brand you want to convey. And I've got some information there on what kinds of things you can do on your social media profiles, LinkedIn tips, building a personal brand. I also want to mention though, people ask me this a lot, on LinkedIn, if you're not currently working, what should you put in the current section? You definitely should put something in the current section. You could create a current entry, even if you don't have a job, by saying something like, recent graduate / project manager in training, and then put in transition or seeking new opportunity in the company name box. This is helpful because recruiters will often put currently employed as part of their search criteria, and also specific keywords that could include project management, for example, and it's a job that you haven't had before, but that's the job that you're looking for. So you're much more likely to come up in their search criteria if you put something in that current section. Some people also ask me, during this time, should I just start adding as many people as I can as connections on LinkedIn? Yes, if you do it correctly. So the best way, and we're going to talk about this more later, the best way is to get involved in conversations through LinkedIn groups with others who are in the group, and then ask to connect. The wrong way, and I can't stress this enough, the wrong way is to send out a bunch of LinkedIn invitations to strangers without personalizing the message to let them know that you want to connect. So LinkedIn has a default, I'd like to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. Avoid that at all costs. Unless you know the person so well that you could send them a text today and expect an answer sometime later today. And even then, I would still want to personalize that LinkedIn invitation. Also, this is another one that people ask me a lot. So let's say you've had a really great interview with someone, a hiring manager. Should you go home, send the thank you note, and then immediately request connecting with that hiring manager on LinkedIn? No, definitely not. It's considered presumptuous and rude to do that right after the interview, no matter how great it was. Now, once you get the job, definitely you can connect with them or request a connection then. And if you don't get a job, that job, you can ask to connect then, and again, say something about how much you appreciated the time and how interested you are in the company and that sort of thing, and you'd like to connect on LinkedIn. So wait until you know one way or the other, then reach out to connect. So now that you have your social media cleaned up and updated, think again about what you want your social media profiles to say about you and what you want to accomplish with them with regard to your job search. Regardless of what platforms you're using, you'll want to like, comment, repost other people's content, post your own. So a lot of the things that you would do for your personal accounts, but you would do it from the perspective of a job seeker. So these are professional kinds of posts, professional industry blogs, those kinds of things that you would repost. You can also show your personality and interests, of course, but you would keep that to a minimum, and it would be more professional networking and job search. And then decide where you'd like to expand your online presence. You generally don't want to be everywhere because you want to be able to actively participate, usually 2 to 3. So it might be LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, or whatever specific to your particular industry that would be the most helpful. And play to your strengths. If you're a good writer with some innovative ideas about your industry, write a blog and then connect that to all your other LinkedIn and social media sites. If you're great at design, create a wonderful e-portfolio that really shows off your skills and link it to all your other social media so that others can find out more about you and more about your skill set very easily. Now, if it gets overwhelming and you want to automate it, your posts, you can use something like Hootsuite to just set it up automatically and just let it go. Decide what you'd like to build. Think about the specific relationships that are going to be the most helpful to them and to you, because that's what networking is. It's mutually beneficial relationships. And then beyond that, think through who you want to have a more meaningful relationship with. For example, with informational interviews, which we're going to talk about in a bit. I also want to say that a little bit goes a long way with social media. So if it feels overwhelming, even if you do 10 to 15 minutes a day, it can make a big difference in your ability to keep connected with people and keep yourself visible to prospective employers. Now let's talk about finding companies of interest. A lot of a lot of alum will tell me that they'd like to do it differently than just applying on Indeed, let's say, but they don't really know how. They don't know how to find companies that would be of interest to them. What typically happens is people know like the top 5 in their industry. The problem with that is everybody else knows those top 5 too. So you'll have a ton of competition when you apply to those places, especially if you only do it through some online platform, either Indeed or even the company website. It's you and thousands of other people that are applying for that job. So one of the really important things is finding companies that do the same kinds of things that you want, but they're not as obvious. Everybody doesn't know about them. And in fact, the more you have to dig to find these companies, the better off you'll be, because you'll be less likely to have competition, and they're going to be really impressed by the fact that you put forth the effort to find them. So I've given you step-by-step instructions here, but I want to show you these different methods because it's just easier to visualize. I know the first time someone just talked me through it, it's not the same thing as showing it to you. So let's just take a look at, we're going to go into LinkedIn, and let's say we're going to go to the search bar at the top left, and we're going to go IDEO is the company that we want to look at. So what you do is go to their company page, which you see over here. And so you already know about IDEO, but you want to find companies that are like IDEO. So you look at the bottom, and you'll see similar pages. So what that means is you're looking at similar kinds of things from, so here we see Frog and Pentagram. So it's similar design companies. And you can look at those. Let's say we'll look at Frog, and again, go down to the bottom and see similar pages. And then we get even more companies that do design. So you can start adding those to your list of places that you might be interested in. You can also, for example, you could pick 3 or 4 and Google all 4 of those names together and come up with, usually what that'll lead to is it'll say 20 best design companies in such and such, and it'll list those companies plus other companies that you didn't know about yet, and you can add those to your list. Later on, we'll talk about how to connect within those companies, but right now we're just looking for the companies themselves, and specifically we're looking for companies that hire people that do the kinds of things you want to do. So then the alumni method, we're going to go back, because you need to go back to your home screen for this. So in that same search bar, we're not going to type anything in. We're just going to put the cursor there and then hit return. And then hit all filters all the way to the right. And then in this case, you might be looking for alum in a specific company, but let's not do that just yet. Let's look at, okay, so we'll put, our Colorado State University in, and let's say down here we want a job title. So let's say you want to be a project manager. And we might want to look in Fort Collins. And of course, you can add additional criteria, but for our purposes right now, let's just hit apply. And then we've got 606 results. Now here's what we want to do, because right now we're still in the company search. We're not in the alumni search yet, or just people search, people who are doing the kinds of things you want to do. For right now, we just want to look at where they're working, because we know that these companies hire project managers. So you can page through those, write those down. Later on, you can go to their company pages and see if there are places that are of interest to you. A tip would be, don't click through on, so let's say one of these places didn't have and a lot of them won't, because like if someone's not working right now, they wouldn't have a company listed. Don't start clicking through on people just yet, because LinkedIn, they have some kind of, it trips some kind of something, and when you start clicking through really quickly, they think that you're a recruiter, and they're going to limit your searches and try to get you to pay as a recruiter. So right now we're just writing down the company names. So, and again, any questions you have about this, just jot those down and we'll cover them during the question and answer session. And then what we're going to do is the Indeed method. And this is going to be different than what you think it will be. For those of you who have been to my other webinars, you know that only 12% of people get their next job through applying online, if that's all they're doing. So there's going to be something that comes up here that makes it difficult, and let me just show you what that is. So let's say where you want to look at project manager positions in Fort Collins, and we see that there's 36 jobs. So again, right now we're looking at the companies. We're looking for the companies who hire project managers in the Fort Collins area, so that we can add that to our list and then start strategizing how we want to network into those companies. The really difficult thing during this phase is you'll want to click on at least one and apply for it. You'll say, oh, this looks perfect. That kind of slows down the momentum, and remember, in the best of times, you get about a 12% return on that. So it doesn't mean that you can't apply for those, but for right now, let's just focus on the companies, finding people within the companies, networking in, and then you can also spend 12 to 15% of your time just applying directly. Or if you want to apply, we're still going to network you in to that company, because the chances are just so remote that you'll get a job just doing that, just applying on Indeed. Okay, so that's another way to look for companies. And then another way you could do it is trends. So let's say we're looking at trends in project management. Very often it will list some companies, often companies you've never heard of before, but it also will give you some interesting information that you might be able to use during your informational interviews or your networking, or the kinds of blogs that you might post, or just content that you post. So for example, here they're mentioning artificial intelligence and talking about how the role of artificial intelligence is impacting project management. So that's really interesting. And that could be one of the things that you talk about when you talk to the people that you're going to do informational interviews with, what they think about that trend, where they see it going, and so on. And then in most cases, like I said, there's other companies here. It looks like they're mostly just talking about the Project Management Institute and what they think of it, and the World Economic Forum's Future of Work report, talking about how important social skills are going to be. Because again, once someone mentions artificial intelligence and how it impacts a given industry, people start worrying that computers and robots will take our jobs. So this talks about how that's not the case, and how this would free project managers up to strategize more, spend more time with people, and those kinds of things. Okay, so the one other one, I won't show you this last one because it's, let's get back out of that. It's through your library, and it's a really good resource, but there's no reason for me to take you into the resource. You just do it through your public library, and it has every company that exists, and so you can look up by job title, by basically anything, and it's a very up-to-date, very comprehensive list. So that would be another way to find companies of interest. Now, if you find that some of these companies aren't hiring right now, which will be the case for right now, still, if you're really interested in them, keep them on your list and keep networking. because when things open back up, you'll be the person who's already networked in. It'll be much easier for you to secure a job there. Now, so there's a variety of different ways that we can do this for finding networking contacts. So again, let's just go to we're just going to go back to LinkedIn. And again, we'll go to the search bar. We're not typing anything in. We're just hitting return so that we can get back to our all filters. And in this case, you can put in things like the current company, Colorado State, if you want to connect with alumni, the type of work. You can get more and more specific, because what we're looking for now is people who are 1 to 2 levels above where you would expect to come in a particular job. So if we were, let's say, let's look at Colorado State again, and instead of project manager, let's look at senior project manager. And let's look, and you could put like a particular industry if there's a particular industry you want to work in. And in this case, let's just look at Denver. Okay, and then we see some senior project managers and where they work. So, and they also went to CSU. So here's where you'd want to look to see what companies you're interested in, which people you might want to talk to, and then we would begin to set up informational interviews or Zoom virtual coffee, or you'd connect with them on LinkedIn to ask questions, a variety of different things like that. Then what you'll want to do, because LinkedIn charges, I think it's still $29.95. I haven't looked for a while, $29.95 per month for their premium service. You don't need their premium service. You can get everything that you would need in the premium service just by knowing how to access information within LinkedIn. So for example, if you pay $29.95, you could just message people directly through InMail, or you could find out what groups they belong to, see if you belong to those same groups. If you do, you can just message them directly through the group. If you don't belong to any of the groups they belong to, join a couple of the groups that they belong to. Usually takes a day or two to get the okay to join the group. You know, they'll look through your profile and whoever's administering the group. And then it's about within 4 days that you'll be able to message people directly within the group. Now, LinkedIn gives you 15 free messages per month, not per group, but per month. So be strategic about who you want to contact for just networking in general or an informational interview. You can also join up to 50 groups in LinkedIn. You might not want to be active in 50 groups, probably not. You'll pick maybe the 10 most important and be active within those groups. So you'll not only be reaching out to people, you'll also be posting content, you'll be commenting on other people's content, becoming visible within that group, active and visible within the group. Now let me show you one other option that I think is really cool. Most people don't know about this option, is this right here. So we're gonna go to, let me just take you back to the beginning of it. There's something called hunter.io where you can find anybody's email address. It's free, and all you need to do is put in an email address. They don't ask for your contacts or anything like that. You can email 100 people per month for free, and all you would do is, so let's say you just want to reach out through email, you don't want to go through LinkedIn, or the person isn't on LinkedIn, you would just put in, let's check coloradostate.edu. And what you would do when you look at the information that comes up is get an idea of how they do their email, because it might be first initial, last name, at whatever the company name. It might be last name, then first name. So for example, we see at Colorado State, it's first name dot last name, and you can look through and that's what it is all the way through. So then if we want to, let's say we want to copy that, and then we'll take it up to verifier. And then verify whether or not this email is correct. And it is. It says it's a valid email. So when people ask how you got their email, if it's like through that initial like LinkedIn, or if they email back and say, how did you get my email? You could just say, I found you on LinkedIn. And then once you talk to them, then would be the time, if you choose to, or you can tell them right away. But most people, when you tell them, oh, there's this hunter.io, they think it's really cool that this exists. And but you may not want to lead with that whenever you are talking to a potential networking contact. All right. Now let's talk about that next phase, the informational interview. So you've chosen your companies, you've selected people you'd like to network with, to network into those companies, or to just get more information in general. One of the most powerful ways to make a networking connection is informational interviewing. In addition to all the useful information that you'll get from informational interviewing, this point about informational interviewing is very important. People love to talk about themselves. It's so rare in our current society that someone would just give someone else their undivided attention for 30 minutes. Usually 30 minutes is what you'll ask for. It's so rare that it actually lights up certain parts of their brain and sets off certain brain chemicals, all positive, that they then associate with you. So not only are you getting great information, but you're also making them like you, because they feel good around you, and they're not necessarily realizing one of the really interesting parts of the research is that all you've done is given your 2-minute or less when they say, tell me about yourself, and you tell them about yourself, and then you start asking questions. And then since not everybody knows how to do or what informational interviewing is, you'll have to kind of guide them back, because they'll often think you're wanting to be interviewed by them, which would be great, but that's not the purpose right now. So as they might ask you a question, you'll answer it and then you'll direct it back to them, so the focus stays on them. So the research says that later they will say, we had such a great conversation. And it wasn't a conversation, it was one way. It was more like an interview. You were asking them questions and they were answering them. But they just felt so good after the interaction, and they feel good about you because of how they felt around you. So being likable is really important in the job search in general, and giving your total focus to someone really helps in that regard. Now in this case, we'll be doing it virtually, so it's a bit different, but for the same, along those same lines, you'll be looking into the camera, not at the, if it's like a Zoom call, into the camera and not on the screen, so that you can be making eye contact with them while they're talking. Something that you can do, because it's really hard to do because you want to look at the screen because that's where they are, is to just maybe print out a picture of them from LinkedIn or something and put it right next to your camera or on the top of your camera, because it reminds you to keep looking there. Also, if you're looking anywhere close to your camera, it still looks like you're looking directly into their eyes. So that's a really important aspect of it. Now, for those of you just later on when you do these in person, wear a watch, because you'll be the person who keeps time. You'll want to respect their time. So when it's about 10 minutes until, let's say, the 30 minutes is up, you'll want to say, oh, I want to be respectful of your time. We've only got 10 minutes left. usually they're having such a good time that they'll say, no, 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 because I want to tell you about the time, but don't let it go past 5 minutes more, 10 minutes more, because you don't want them to, you don't want anything negative associated with this conversation that you've had with them. Also, it's very important when this is face-to-face, or certainly if your phone, just have your phone nowhere near you whenever you do anything that has to do with informational interviewing, even if it's on the phone, if it's on a landline, which most of you probably don't have, but you wouldn't have your cell phone anywhere near you. On Zoom, nowhere near you. Certainly in person, nowhere near you. You wouldn't want to use your phone to check the time in any kind of networking situation. There's a ton of research about that if I get started on it, I'll go for a really long time. So you're focused on them throughout the entire interaction. Then within 24 hours, you'll send an email thank you that says, given the research I've done and the great information I got from you, I've decided this is a direction I'd like to go. Please let me know if you hear of something. I've attached my resume. So you can attach your resume at that time. You wouldn't want to do it, you wouldn't want to bring a resume with you or send it ahead of a Zoom informational interview. That doesn't feel good to them. It feels like you're asking for a job, and you're not. You're asking for information because you're thinking of moving into this other industry given our current circumstances. This other industry would be a good place for your transferable skills, you think, and talking to them would give you more information about whether or not that would be a good move for you. So again, I've given you links on requesting and doing informational interviews, and then good questions to ask. So in summary, in terms of networking, it's always been the best way to get a job, always, but it's more important now than it's ever been before. Remember, 12% of people in the best of times get their next job by applying online. So networking is the way that you're going to get your next job. Not only do you want to be networking with companies of interest and people within those companies that you're interested in, but stay engaged with them. Even if they don't have jobs right now, stay engaged with them, because when they do, you're going to be at the top of the list because you have continued that engagement. Also, it's really good to, if you already have contacts within companies, ask how you can help in these current circumstances. Maybe you've done remote work teams in the past, or there's a specific training that you'd be willing to provide for them. Show them what kind of person you are and what kind of an employee you would be. Remember, networking is mutually beneficial, so reach out to help also. Not only is it a great thing to do, you never know how that's going to come back, how they might help you in return later on. And look for online networking events. I've got 2 of them here that have like job fairs and just online networking events. Also, Flex Jobs is having a job fair tomorrow from 10 to 5 Eastern, if you're interested in that. And then based on what you learn in your informational interviews, for example, they might say, well, you need these skills in order to make this kind of a move into this industry. So these are some great places that you can learn some of those skills. You also would want to be looking at remote job skills like using Zoom, Slack, just other kinds of platforms that people use when they're working remotely, if whatever the job is something that you would be doing remotely for at least a period of time. And then the last, as always, take care of yourself, go easy on yourself. Remember that it's perfectly okay not to wake up each day just raring to go out there and find 20 new networking contacts. There'll be days when you get nothing at all done on your job search, and that's completely fine. But even if you can get one thing done, find one networking contact and write that contact down, or one company of interest, it'll feel better and it'll feel like you're still moving forward. But when you're in the midst of whatever a given day brings, take a break before you need a break. Maybe get out and take a short walk so that you're out in the sunshine and you're also getting exercise. Do something that helps you feel better several times a day. We're all at some level of fight, flight, or freeze, that reaction, given our current circumstances and all of the very real threats that are out there. So go easy on yourself. Know that you're not going to be at 100% every day, and it's okay to not be. Control what you can control. Let go of what you can't, if at all possible. So if you'd like to contact me individually, you'll find my contact information here. I'm going to leave that up for just a bit, and then I'm going to stop the recording.